Hello people of the internet, I'm the GatFacts guy, and what we're going to do tonight is look at the first 25 or so GatFacts and kind of give you a little background on each of them. This first one here came about because there was someone on the internet arguing that Soviet weapons were superior to Western weaponry because they were designed to fire literally anything you could stuff in a magazine. Now, this is not at all true. If you were to put a round that was not designed for it in there, it probably would not fire, and the ones that do fire, well, they're definitely not going to be reliable. They're probably going to be really a bad idea. Wouldn't recommend it. You'll also notice that this does not have the GatFacts logo on it. Early on, I hadn't finalized anything like that. There's no logo, there's no additional information at the bottom. It's just image, text, done. This one came about because at the time I was starting these, the tourist judge had a whole lot of hype around it. There's also that sort of pervasive myth that 22 long rifle is somehow much deadlier than rounds much larger than itself. And it does kill a lot of people. It's very available, it's very cheap, so pretty much anyone can get their hands on it. However, despite the number of lives it claims, it's not especially good at it. It's just a matter of numbers. It's a poor defense choice because when it does kill, but a kill or incapacitation period is not necessarily guaranteed. You can shoot someone with it and they drop instantly, you can shoot someone with it a whole bunch of times and nothing happens, you still get beat up or worse. This one came about back when AR-15s were heavily regulated by the National Firearms Act, as well as simply being priced uncompetitively. Around 2012, there was still that huge panic that the new president was going to ban firearms, or especially intermediate caliber rifles. And the Mini 14 being available for so long, being such a traditional look with the wood stock and the Garand style receiver, was often overlooked by lobbyists looking to ban specific weapons, and it wound up being used in quite a few crimes, high-profile crimes at that. That's really kind of the focus of this. Is gun laws really tend to lock in or one or two things while ignoring sort of the reality of the situation. This one was legitimately someone arguing that riot police or just oppressive regimes in general would have their marksmen or snipers go and deal with a crowd by shooting people in the head to cause shrapnel from their bones. But that's just insane. That's no, you're going to get more damage from a round passing through a person than from bone shrapnel. It's not especially dense. It's not. I'm not even sure why I'm continuing with this because the whole idea is so absurd. Anyway, I just really liked this picture, the owl with the water droplet exploding out of its head. It was a good picture. Now this one is sort of continuing on that the judge is the most strongest, powerfulest, best self-defense weapon. Well, obviously if a very anemic revolver cartridge is very powerful, then obviously a full-on rifle round is a much better choice. So that's where we're at with this. And these are pretty neat guns. If your state allows handgun hunting and requires a fairly powerful round for big game, this is a decent option. They're pretty cool guns. This is another one when someone on Reddit was arguing that there's no point in using a round smaller than a major magnum rifle round if you're shooting, outside of 100 yards. I exaggerate with 200 feet here, but they're really arguing that there is a reason for the average shooter to be spending that premium and deal with that much extra recoil just to shoot beyond 100 yards, which is insane. There are people who shoot .22 long rifle at 200 yards. There are people who shoot .223 at a mile. You just got to find the kind of shooting you're into and figure out what works best for you in that situation. Or if you're a crazy person who just likes to min-max and try to see just how far you can accurately run around. Really, just spending extra money if you're doing that, unless you have a specific reason to, or you're shooting extreme long ranges. This one came about because of the whole kerfluffle about black talon ammunition. During that time, the media had conflated armor-piercing ammunition with hollow point ammunition, and there was this just huge confusion about how handgun ammunition especially works. And there was this belief that black talon especially, but hollow point ammunition in general, was designed to pierce bulletproof vests and kill police. But that's not at all the case. Outside of very, very specific purpose-designed rounds, your average level 3A soft armor is going to stop pretty much any average handgun round. Even some of the ones that are purpose-designed. But again, that's not what hollow points are good for. They're not at all great at penetrating Kevlar. This is back to the bulletproof vest. This was just kind of making fun of the semantics of the whole thing. Yes, bulletproof vests are sort of a misnomer. They will stop a lot of bullets, but they will not stop all bullets. For example, a rifle round is going to zip right through most soft body armor, where they will stop most pistol rounds. The FM57 was purpose-designed to defeat Kevlar helmets at, we'll just say close range, with a specific type of ammunition. That's not going to be the same for the most common ammunition. The civilian market is going to be a lot less able to do so, but it really didn't change how body armor manufacturers were required to label their stuff. It's always going to be called a bulletproof vest because that's what it's the common nomenclature. Everyone kind of understands that they're bullet resistant rather than bulletproof. There's really no way to make something truly bulletproof. There's always going to be a way to defeat it. So the background on this one is I believe it's Congressman Charles Rangel. He was the presiding basically vote on the National Firearms Act. He didn't like how the initial electronic vote went, and so he called for a verbal vote of yeas versus nays. If you watch recordings of this, the nays are, based on the recording, louder than the yeas, which would indicate that there wasn't enough support to actually pass the NFA at that time in its particular configuration. However, he called it as yay, which caused the National Firearms Act to get passed. The president at the time decided it would go ahead and pass, and then he would allow it to be adjusted appropriately in Congress, and that never happened, and that's why the machine gun registry is currently closed. This is a good one to read up on and actually watch videos of, although it would probably make you pretty angry if you want to own a machine gun at any point. These stocks were very popular in the airsoft and sort of, we'll just say, mall ninja category of person. There was this sort of prevailing view that this was this cool thing used by Navy SEALs or whatever special operations group, when really it would make a lot more sense for them to be running a short-barreled rifle or a carbine rather than trying to rely on the substantially less powerful pistol rounds with a kind of boondoggle sticking off of it. It's going to make your pistol a whole lot larger without giving you as much advantage as having a 3 points of contact on a rifle with a much more powerful round. For some reason I used some transparency on the logo there. I'm not sure what was going on. This one is making fun of sort of the ideology behind laws that require duty to retreat. Basically, when in regards to self-defense, there's a theory that lawmakers kind of stick with a romanticized view of violence and self-defense, that you have to go through a series of escalations before you're allowed to actually use deadly force, which, I mean, it sounds reasonable on the outset, but in practice, the escalation has already happened. Someone has broken into the home they know is occupied. There's no guarantee from them of any leniency or reasonableness, and going through a whole list of things to try to sort of de-escalate when the situation's already stacked against you is probably not the best way of doing things. And this is just sort of taking things to a logical extreme. This one happened because some guy was both arguing that the Class 3 license for a gun owner is a thing, as well as misspelling Uzi, which I particularly enjoyed. That was surprisingly the first time I saw someone spell Uzi like this, but it turns out that's a fairly common way of spelling it for people who've never actually seen it spelled out. So the Class 3 license thing comes from the idea that if you want to own a machine gun or a short-barreled shotgun or a short-barreled rifle or any of those type of things, you would need to get a particular license. But as a civilian owner, that's not something you're going to worry about. For you, it would work in that you would go, you decide you want to buy whichever item, you would fill out all the paperwork for the ATF, not the FBI, and then you would go and you would pay your $200 tax on the transfer of ownership. You're not paying a license to have machine guns, you're paying on the transfer of ownership. And that's your license per se, but it's not really a license. It's just showing that you paid the government the tax to take ownership of this regulated item. It doesn't give you any special privileges or anything of that beyond simply being the registered owner of this weapon and being able to legally have it. This one was sort of perpetuated by the, I want to say the Death Wish series? No, that can't be right. Oh, the film Dirty Harry, in which he famously described the .44 Magnum as the most powerful gun in the world. And it's not. You can commercially acquire things like the .500 Smith & Wesson Magnum, the .650 Swiss Nelson Magnum, and quite a few others, up to completely ridiculous one-off builds like this guy's 50 BMG handgun. It's not a common thing, but so this one, 3D printers, especially at the time this one was done, were really in their infancy as far as the commercial available to just the general public ones, they're going to have a real hard time making a robust firearm. The single-shot ones like the Songbird and more recently the semi-auto ones are much more common. Those require parts aside from what you would be able to make with a 3D printer like this. The plastic extruded ones are very limited in their ability to make a functioning firearm. But it can be done, especially the single shot or just single loading firearms. The 3D printers that do laser sintering of metal can produce a fully functional firearm of basically any type as long as you have the files to produce it. You are able to get the springs if you had the additional parts to finish it out. But definitely 8 years ago when I produced this GatFact, that wasn't the norm. It definitely isn't something that's super available today on this, just the average consumer market. This one's just poking fun at how popular the idea was that 9mm is a completely worthless round. Despite the military and many law enforcement agencies switching to 9mm from 45 in the case of the United States military and 40 in many police departments. This is just more salt about the popularity of the idea of the judge being an excellent defensive weapon. The circuit judge is just a rifle version of the handgun. It doesn't change the capacity, it's still 5 rounds. Birdshot's still a terrible option. It's going to be better than with the regular size judge. If you've seen Brass Fetcher's ballistic testing on that, shooting birdshot through a 12-inch 410 revolver failed to penetrate 2 inches of ballistic gel. That's really, really poor performance. It's definitely not something you would be using for self-defense or home defense or anything like that. It could be fun for clays, it could be fun for just messing around kind of gun, but that would not be my first choice for anything serious. This one, the whole myth about 50 BMG being so strong, it will cause shockwaves that are enough to kill you or destroy body parts, is complete insanity. If you just think of the energy that would be required to be shed by the round as it's flying, that's just completely and totally insane. There's plenty of videos online debunking this. You can see people shooting 50 BMG through stacked playing cards, through plastic cups, balloons, fancy glassware, you name it. There's just all sorts of proof out there that this is completely insane. Yeah, even the Mythbusters have hit this a few times. This one, I just like the photo. The thing about these break-action shotguns, you have 2 options basically. Extractors, which push the round up slightly and let you remove them easily, or ejectors, which this one has, which launch the rounds, the spent casings out forcefully. It was just a cool photo, I want an excuse to use it, and that's what happened. So the PSL and the Dragunov SVD are very similar looking rifles that fulfill a similar purpose, but their actual internal workings are substantially different. The Dragunov is still arguably the better rifle, the more accurate rifle. However, the PSL is an option for people who don't want to be spending the ridiculous upcharge to own the real deal. And this is again making fun of what people consider long or short range targets at hundreds of feet. Yeah, that'd be pretty much any distance rifle be used at. This is kind of another, just I like the photo and an excuse to use it. Muzzle flash is really a function of how much powder is in a cartridge versus barrel length. Ideally, you want a well-optimized round to have little muzzle flash. It's distracting when you're shooting. In a military sense, it would give away your location. But as just a casual shooter, creating huge fireballs is fun. This is short AK shooting full power rounds, so there's going to be a large muzzle flash, which is going to be enhanced by shooting it looks like dusk. If you're going to be photographing fireballs, you definitely want to be at dusk or later, and a short barrel rifle definitely helps with that. This one is making fun of the famous HK advertisement where they had a magazine loaded backwards. I believe that was USB. If you look on image searches, you will be able to find it by just looking for HK backwards round, plus tons and tons and tons of memes. This one has been memed to death. It is totally worthy of being memed to death, and HK's actually gotten in on the fun and continued to load rounds backwards in their Twitter account and other things, because they've owned that joke, and I gotta give them props for that. This is just more continuing the idea that the judge was this somehow equivalent to carrying a 12-gauge shotgun in your pocket, and it really isn't. There's just so many compromises in its design. It's huge compared to other guns designed for concealed carry. 410's really not a good choice for self-defense compared to what else is out there. And if you're using it with 45 long bolt, there's a lot more compact and more practical platforms that you could be using instead. There are some 410 handgun specific rounds that are completely adequate, but you're just dealing with 5 rounds of so-so when you could have 17, 20 rounds of something good. They're far from my preference. The advertising especially I felt was very misleading on these, and I've kind of had a specific interest in lampooning them. Basically on this one, if you're really injured, there's that tendency to kind of curl up in a ball, and if you're curled up in a ball, your hand's back by your foot, it's real easy to draw from ankle in that position. Ankle carry is going to be slower than waistband carry. That's really the only 2 things I was really kind of pointing at here. This isn't like a huge dig at anyone who ankle carries. There are reasons for that. If you have very slim waist clothing where printing is a major issue, I can see ankle carrying being the ideal choice for you there. And some people carry a backup gun ankle carry. If you can't access your waistline for whatever reason, maybe you're able to reach your ankle. Nothing wrong with that. This is one of those technically true but wildly impractical sort of things. Pressing the bullet down into the casing is going to increase the pressure when the round goes off, but that is not going to be a good thing in most cases. This may just result in excessive wear on your firearm, but it could also cause it to explode if the pressure is high enough, or if there's existing damage to your gun. Definitely not recommended to shoot rounds that have this sort of bullet setback. And this one's just making fun of the idea that rounds that are not as powerful as the most common self-defense calibers are completely worthless, and they're not. There are times when you need a very, very small firearm for whatever reason. It could be fashion, or you just need that kind of concealment. 25 ACP, 32 ACP, they all have their place. If you're very comfortable with your shot placement, if you're very comfortable with the reliability of the weapon, they're a completely valid choice. They will kill, they will do far, far more damage than an airsoft gun would. But given the options in subcompact pistols today, there's really not a huge reason to go for it unless you've got a very, very specific reason that you need a very, very tiny gun. And, that'll wrap things up for tonight. I hope you enjoyed this. If this gets some traction, I'll go ahead and do this for more GatFacts in the future. Just let me know in the comments, and I hope you'll have a good one.